Welcome to Morsels of Excellence. I am Reverend Nora Faust, one of the Associate Conference Ministers here in the Penn Central Conference. This year, we have been looking at the marks of a healthy church in our monthly topics on this vlog. As we begin to see some light at the end of our pandemic tunnel, we are getting back to churches in a more usual way, things that we're used to, back to sanctuaries, and starting to navigate in many areas some sort of hybrid worship that keeps us both online as well as back in our buildings. Now, make no mistake, friends, this is a keeper from the days of pandemic. So our topic this month really looks at some of the intricacies of this type of worship. For starters, yes, maintaining your online presence even after returning to the building is of vital importance for your congregation. New folks have been able to join you online who might not have been able to come into your building for some time. Don't leave them out because of geography or mobility. Now that they have returned, shutting the door on your online services would be like shutting the door right in their face. In addition to their click to watch or streaming, it will be important for you also to find ways to really connect in real life with these folks. But that's another topic for another day, though I want to spend this time on more technical legal parts of this hybrid worship that I think will be so important for healthy churches moving forward. So in this streamed or filmed rebroadcast worship, it's important to remember issues of confidentiality around prayer requests, people being on camera, and especially minors. Some type of congregational education will be so important so that your name and parameters around what is recorded and what is not is public knowledge. Think about anything that's shared in your worship service being shared with a stranger on the street. It is best to include a note about streaming or filming for broadcast purposes in the bulletin, as well as having regular attenders sign a release form for use of their image and voice. It's also important to note that a pastor's sermon is their own intellectual property, whether they file for a copyright or not. It is still their property. And it should be noted in the closing credits or on the bulletin around how others might use this pastoral property. However, it's also important to note that in order for a pastor to claim copyright infringement, they do need to register their intellectual property. And that's another thing for another day that I really won't know how to talk about. And finally, a word on the legalities of copyright. It's not always the first way that we think about a copyright, but copyright violations really are a way to think about social justice. In court, individuals can be awarded statutory damages of up to $30,000 for one incorrect use of copyrighted material. Now, that is social justice for the creators of this content. They deserve to be paid for their creativity, for their work. And I have to be honest with you, I probably only know enough about copyright to really be dangerous, but these things I do know. The fail-safe solution for copyright is to check with the license holder. If your church has a one license or has a CCLI, when you call them or email them to register your use of something, You need to check with them about how exactly you intend to use it, whether it is simply putting lyrics on a screen for a closed caption in-house kind of broadcast, or if it's something that will be rebroadcast online. You need to make sure that whoever you're paying for the use does know how you're using it. It's important to remember that attribution is not a substitute for permission to duplicate and disseminate someone else's work. It is especially not a substitute when your service is being streamed or live broadcast after the live streaming. When it comes to church music, it is important for your church to invest in these licenses that I mentioned, one license, CCLI, and there are others out there. For many of you, the best option will be onelicense.net, as they cover most of the hymnody of the church. Another really popular license for churches that covers a lot of the contemporary music is the CCLI. Broadcasting and streaming are different, as I mentioned, from simply reprinting the lyrics as part of a PowerPoint during the live worship service. It's important that your license holder know exactly how you're using it and an estimated number of how many folks it will reach. Rebroadcasting is another specific issue for licensing, as many of them may have expiration dates. For example, the Penn Central Conference virtual choir Christmas performances in December of 2020 could only be made available through our YouTube channel for 6 months, and then we had to take them down. After that 6-month period, they are no longer available based on the initial license agreement. And use of that material would put Penn Central in violation of that original copyright agreement. Unless material that you are using is specifically noted as in the public domain, you do need permission, explicit permission, to duplicate it in filmed, streamed, or rebroadcast worship. Issues of copyright infringement can be scary and challenging to navigate, and companies from whom you purchase your licenses are very willing to answer questions that you have along the way. Asking these questions is incredibly important. Now, I know that it has been said that asking forgiveness is a whole lot easier than asking permission, but in the cases of copyright, it is incredibly important, and I cannot impress this enough, so important to ask permission much sooner than forgiveness. There are companies out there who employ people to do nothing but search the internet for copyright violations. We are all in this journey of church together, and the National Church has put out a number of resources for us to make sure that we navigate copyright waters and other legalities as safely as possible. So there are some links in the document below our video this month that may be helpful for your church conversation. And if you have questions about how to do hybrid worship from a practical and logistical standpoint, please don't hesitate to reach out to conference staff. We'd love to have that conversation for your specific worshiping community. Thanks so much for joining us. I look forward to seeing you next month on Morsels of Excellence. Take care.